Welcome to Redbeard Radio. I'm Brian Keith, and today we're talking about something that you come across all the time, dear listener. It's what do you think you can do, and who is it that told you that that's as much as you can do? What are your true limits? To have this conversation, we're talking with a guy who puts over 100 pounds of ice in a livestock trough and hops in. He's that kind of crazy guy. His name is Jeff Putnam, and he's going to go talk with us about where your limits come from and how to push past your limits. Jeff, welcome to Redbeard Radio.
Brian, thanks for having me on, man. I like how you introduced me as a lunatic. It's great.
Well, I say that with love because among the things I post on social media is me walking on Mount Rainier in October, I think it was, and I'm wearing a knit cap. I have wool gloves on. I have really thin barefoot tennis shoes, wool long johns, and some shorts. No shirt on. And it was in the 30s. The wind was pretty strong. It was snowing a little bit, so I was getting stinging ice into my skin. And I was bright red from all the breathing exercises I'm doing to not go numb and get frostbite. And there's all these people looking at me on the mountain. And almost all of them have the look of, is this person crazy? And then the park rangers have the look of, do I need to rescue this person? Only one person as I'm walking by says, Wim Hof, eh? I'm like, yeah, you know it. And I walked up. I remember this moment because I talked to a lot of people, but I couldn't really stop moving because then I would freeze, obviously, because it's, in the 30s and I'm shirtless. And I talked to this one guy who was wearing this big puffy jacket, and he said, oh, I'd be so cold if I was not wearing this jacket. And I said, oh, I would be so cold if I was wearing this jacket. And he gave me this look, right? Because what I said was insane to him. Because to him, if you're not wearing a big puffy jacket when it's in the 30s out, you're going to die. And I tried to share with him the truth about actually you wearing the jacket is making you cold, but there was no way that he could actually hear that. It couldn't happen because he had this limit. And that's what I'd love to dive into more with you because you do things like ice baths during thunderstorms, which most people think 100 pounds of ice and you're going to get in it during a thunderstorm. That sounds crazy.
In a galvanized tub, right?
What could go wrong? But you're operating on a different set of limits than the people who hear that and go, that person's crazy. So I'd love to just start off with your ice bath story is so vivid. When did you start deciding to go push yourself with the cold?
It was this year, actually. And I've only been doing it.
Really?
I've only been doing it for, I'll say about 3 months now. But it started off with a good friend of mine named Zach Hummel. He is the owner and founder of Iron Valley Barbell in Indiana. And he started doing these ice baths, talking about how, he's trying to master the cold. And he had some videos of him just stark naked, wading through a pond or a lake in Indiana, breaking through it with an axe and a sledgehammer, right? And it was frozen. And I go, well, this guy's clearly a nut job. He's one of my best friends, but he's clearly a nut job. And I kept seeing all these other people jumping in to do these ice baths. And I've always been the guy. I love the winter. I love the cold just because it feels so much better when you get back into the warmth, right? So it's December, freezing cold outside, and then you come inside, you got the fire going. It's just that whole vibe that I'm attracted to. And then I said, you know what? Screw this. If they can do it, I have to see if I can do it. And that's how it all started. And everybody was like, well, just start off with cold showers and work your way up. I'm like, I live in the South. I take cold showers because it's a necessity, not because it's, it's like 90 degree here with 178% humidity. We have to take cold showers or we'll just never, ever get clean. So I said, all right, I'm just going to jump in the ice. And the first time around, I think I had like 80, 90 pounds of ice. I went to Tractor Supply, bought a 100-gallon stock tank, which is what you see in those photos. Filled it up with about 70, 80 gallons, dumped all the ice in there. So it was like a 1-to-1 ratio ice per gallon, right? And I jumped in, and it took me about 5 minutes to get sat all the way down. Because I was doing the whole hyperventilation thing of that water crawling up my torso. Yep. I did that, and I said, all right, well, now I'm in. I'm not going to get out for 15 minutes. I have no idea.
Your first
I
time.
have no idea how long I'm supposed to do it or how long is too long, right? I just go, well, they did it, so I'm going to go do it. That's why I kind of believe that people who are ignorant of consequences fare better than people who are not. Because I didn't know, right? I didn't know if it was going to be good or
Well,
bad or too
yeah.
much. I just got in it. And so I went the 15 minutes, got out, went and stood in the sun, shivered like crazy to the point where my back hurt. Okay, that was cool. I've done it. Now I'm probably going to do that again because it was really cool. And then I would try to go a little
Hmm.
bit longer every time, and I'd increase the amount of ice I was using. I'm up to the point now where I'm using about 180 pounds of ice. And so it's more ice than
Wow.
water at this point in the stock tank. And I put a video on Instagram and I sent it to you. I'm going to try to go for 20 minutes in an ice bath. Well, the thing is, when I was streaming it live, so no one could say I didn't do it, I didn't realize that Instagram Live doesn't have one of those video timers on the screen. And so I'm just sitting there like,
Oh no.
I'll just assume it's been 20 minutes, right? And
Oh.
I got to one point, I could have stayed longer, and I went, the water is getting warmer now. So it has to have been at least 20 minutes or close to it. So I ended it and I
Hmm.
looked at the video. I've been in there for 28 minutes. Like, oh, okay. So
Wow.
again, I was completely ignorant of the timer. I was completely ignorant of how long I'd been in there or how long I should have stayed.
Huh.
Because I think if I had seen the timer, 30 more seconds, 5 more seconds. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
out. Boom. I ended up staying 8 minutes longer than I was supposed to just because I wasn't sure
Uh-huh.
if I had made it to 20 minutes or not. And I didn't want to fall short. And
For
now
anyone
it's,
listening at home who thinks if you want to start doing ice baths, folks, consider starting a hyperventilation before you get in the ice bath. The way Jeff did it is the hard way. I've actually never done it that way. We had a livestock trough, which we just moved. I got to go get it set back up. And so I would do the hyperventilation for a couple minutes outside of the thing. And then once I got my body warm and everything's organized, then get in the ice. Just get in the ice cold and then start hyperventilating. I hear that and I think, oh, that's crazy.
well, see, now I don't do that at all.
Now you just,
Now I can just, it's kind of cheating. A friend of mine, Rich Graham, he's a former Navy SEAL. He's the founder of Full Spectrum Warrior. And he does, travels, does training with law enforcement all over the world, things like that. He told me when we were discussing it, he said, get your arms wet. He goes, if you ever notice and it was something that he picked up when he was doing buds and SEAL training and all this other, people always pull their arms up when they're getting into cold water and they hold their arms up for whatever reason. It's some kind of psychological defense mechanism. He said, get your hands wet and then bend over and get up to your shoulders, just your arms wet. Get that out of the way. And it makes the whole thing
huh.
easier. Now, I don't know if it makes it easier or not,
Wow.
but I started doing that. And it could be, a placebo. It's all in your head. But I started doing that and it helped a little bit. What really actually helped was I stand in the water before I add the ice. And I've got all the ice bags torn open laying beside my tank. And so I'm standing there, right up to my knees in it. And I dump all the bags of ice. I take a deep breath. I hold it. I sit down flat on my butt, sink up to, I'm chin level with the water. And then I slowly exhale. And then I have no problems with the hyperventilating because I wasn't breathing as I was sinking in. It's just boom,
Hmm.
I'm there. And then I focus on trying to get my heart rate as low as possible with very slow, purposeful, and shallow breaths. It's gotten some points where I kind of drool a little bit, like I'm zoning out.
Uh-huh.
But you just
Well, it's an altered
yeah,
state.
you just pick this
It
point
is
kind of in the horizon, and you kind of look through it. It's kind of with martial arts. If you're hitting the target, you're not hitting the target. You're punching through the target,
Mhm.
right? And so
Yeah.
I'm just looking through whatever my truck or whatever is there, and I just zone out. And I'm still conscious of what's going on around me because I've got birds screaming and making pecans rain down on me from overhead. But that puts me in this zone where I don't shiver. I don't hyperventilate. I don't feel cold. I mean, I can feel the stinging in my hands and the stinging in my feet, and especially up here around my
Mhm.
shoulders where the ice is all bunched up, because it's that ice on your bare skin. It stings. And I feel all that, but you just, okay, it's going to suck. You just accept that it sucks a little bit. Eventually that ice will melt, and then, it won't hurt. And until then it does, just suck it up. And so I started doing that. And that's when I said, I wonder how long I can stay completely submerged under the ice. Because there's something about when
Yeah.
your head gets submerged. One thing that'll make you panic, period. Two, it's
Yeah.
freezing. The water is between 32 degrees and 38 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's really hard to reconcile the panic reflex with this is what you want to do.
You're not actually
You're
dying.
not
Your
actually
body's just
dying.
telling you that you're
Right.
dying.
And so I started trying to see how long I could stay completely submerged. I made it up to about a minute 14 holding my breath under the water. It's as long as I've been able to go.
Wow.
But I smoke cigars and a pipe. So I'm not gonna break any breath holding records, I'll tell you that. But
Hmm.
I've done that and now I'm bored with it. I mean, I still do it regularly, but now I can't wait till winter because I want to do these in the winter when it's 30 degrees outside
Uh-huh.
or colder outside. Because even though I'm in the South, we still get, teens and 20s here. And so on those coldest days are the days I want to fill up the ice tank and jump in there and ride it out for another 20 minutes. It's just
Hmm.
because I could do it the first time. I want to see how far I can go. I mean, I'll risk hypothermia if, it means I discover something new about myself.
Well, and hypothermia is a pretty controllable thing in that very specific environment.
Right.
My background is in mountain climbing, and hypothermia can be a big problem. But if you have the ability to get out of the cold environment, like in your case, as long as you can still push yourself out of the trough and fall over on the sunny ground, and you'll probably be fine.
Probably.
That's just incredible. I'm thinking about when I was on the mountain on Mount Rainier doing my not anywhere close to fully submerged kind of thing. I was just half naked in the snow. Not that big a deal by comparison, but I did a lot of visualization to stay warm, where I both visualized fire moving through my body, and when I'd stop, if I'd lose my focus of my breath, I'd start having numbness. Like I would notice, oh, my hand's gone numb, or oh, my leg's gone numb, or part of my leg. And so I would then remember to start pushing the fire through my body back to that joint or back to that piece of my body to avoid numbness. Do you do any visualization like that of pushing heat through your body, or you're just there?
No. See, I'm a pagan. And when
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the ice, I try to use that as my meditation and time for prayer. And so
Hmm.
when I'm there, I'm, for lack of a non weird way of saying it, to people who are kind of unused to it, I'm using that time to talk to the gods.
Mm-hmm.
And so that requires me, much like if I'm in a ritual space, to kind of transcend emotionally and mentally where I'm standing or where I'm sitting at that point. And it's meditative. And I'm not visualizing, that I'm not cold. This cold is a vessel for me that will allow me to reach a certain state of mind. And so there's a purpose behind it. In order to communicate with my ancestors, with my gods. Uh, and the pain is merely an anchor keeping me grounded to this realm. When that pain starts to go away means I've gone too far because I might die. um,
You're reminding me of Vipassana meditation, the 10-day silent meditation retreats. And I went once and failed out halfway through. I went a second time and I stayed the whole time. Though I tried to leave the second time as well, but the teacher talked me out of it. And I remember after the teacher talked me out of it the second time, I went back to go do my sitting, and the level of pain was maybe the worst of my life, just from pain in my back from sitting there for such a long time, completely still except for breathing. And I remember sitting there, and after I sort of maybe after 10 or 15 minutes, the pain started back up and the searing fire through my spine. And I remember this moment of experiencing that pain again, because I've been experiencing horrible pain for days. And I remember laughing at it inside. And I remember saying, "Hello, pain, my old friend." And one of the things the teacher told me is that sometimes pain is emotions being processed through your body. And the key is to not fight it instead of trying to fight back against. And it was when I said, "Oh, hi there. Hey, old buddy," that suddenly it made the next 5 days bearable. And it still sucked, but it was bearable. And I just sat with this.
Yeah, I feel that, and like I said, I use the pain and the discomfort, and I've climbed out of the ice and I couldn't move my right wrist because the bursa had gotten really stiff and frozen, kind of like what happens to your hands when you're throwing snowballs, right? And it was
Mm.
super uncomfortable to just 90-degree my wrist, up and down while making a fist. So I just didn't do that until I was warmed up. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it hurts to do this, don't do it. Um, but yeah, that pain is the anchor. As long as I'm feeling it there, it's good. If I don't feel any more pain, I've probably been in here too long. And I might stay on this other side that I'm trying to reach. I know that sounds kind of weird and woo woo, but it's really the only way I can describe it. There's a lot to it, though. It's hard to reconcile with someone who has uh, zero interest or even open mindedness to that other side.
I think we find notions of the other side all over the place. I'm reminded of, I think it was maybe Wim Hof wrote about this, some monks down in the Andes, the Chilean Andes, where they would go up wearing almost no clothing to a high lake, dip their robes in this high lake, or sheets, I think it was. So now they're in freezing temperatures with wet sheets, and they would drape the sheets over themselves and meditate to dry out the sheets. And if you couldn't do that, then you weren't sufficiently enlightened or whatever it was. If you didn't have sufficient peace with yourself. And then I'm also reminded, there was one other thing that came to mind. Right, that I once was, I knew a guy, and I don't recall what denomination he was in, but I saw him having a seizure, and I went and when I told his family, and they said, "Yeah, he's just talking to Jesus." That for that particular sect, and I don't know the exact name, so I'm not going to try to guess there, that for some sects of Christianity, it's quite normal that you have seizures, and that's talking to the gods. That this whole altered state thing as a way to get closer to God or the gods is a very old thing. We've been doing this a long time.
Well, are you familiar with the collapse of the bicameral mind?
I am not, but that sounds like yet another book. Folks, first I bought one of Jeff's books. Then he said, no, that's the second one. Buy the first one. So then another of Jeff's books just came in the mail. And apparently now I'm ordering another book. Is this one that you wrote?
No, 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 no. I wish I had written this. This one was written before I was born, though. It was written in the 70s. It was Julian Jaynes. I'm going to have to get the exact title.
Because I'm going to have to go buy it, obviously. Folks, whenever Jeff says to buy a book, you need to go buy the book.
It's Julian Jaynes, The Origin of Consciousness and the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind. So the theory in that book is that, well, start off with a precursor here. Your right side of your brain is the creative, non-linear, emotional side. The left side is your very logical and linear, right? Everybody's dreams with the right side of their brain. They interpret with their left. Well, the theory that Jaynes discusses in the book is that around 10,000 years ago, the brain was divided and the colossocorpum, I think it's
Corpus
corpus
callosum.
callosum, that's it.
Corpus
That
callosum.
bridge was
Yep.
not present at that point in that stage of human evolution, is what his theory is.
So pre-agriculture.
Pre-agriculture. Now, the right side of the brain being non-linear and chaos and the creative side, he theorized that early man hallucinated visually and auditorily on the right side of their brain, and that they interpreted that as the gods talking to them, that they couldn't quite understand it because it was otherworldly. It was when that bridge came into place and the bicameral mind collapsed into the brain we have now, that the voices of the gods all went away, because we started
There's a lot
thinking,
of stories about that.
yes, and we
Yeah,
started
there's
thinking
stories
way
about
too
tradition across
linear.
all the various.
Right. And
Yeah.
one of the things that was mentioned are, I know you've seen the tribes that will elongate their earlobes with the discs. That
Yeah.
was done so in an effort to pick up the voices of the gods that were long lost, based off of the collapse of the bicameral mind. And so, yeah, we've been talking about, hearing the voices of the gods for a long time, and some of them were hallucinatory or alternative state induced, where, you think Joan of Arc, things like that. And that's all I'm doing with my limits, is I'm pushing myself to a point where nothing makes sense. The pain is intense. The cold is intense. It sucks. But if I can allow myself to be consumed by that without resisting it, without fighting it, without tensing up, because I notice if I tense up my muscles in the ice, I shiver. I stay relaxed. I
Uh-huh.
stay relaxed. It just goes away, and it allows me to find this flow state where I can do whatever kind of explorations I need to make.
Jeff, I think we have to hang out sometime in person so the conversation can last for a few hours. Sadly, this is not the format for this. I do have your 2 books now. So at some point in my near future, I have some good times reading and being inside your brain about how you perceive things. For folks at home who are thinking, holy cow, this guy's crazy and I want more, what are those titles of those 2 books? And are there any other books of yours or other people's that people should read?
All right, the first book is Empire Divided: A Modern Man's Path Back to His Tribe. I wrote that one. I started writing it January of this year, and I was finished with it in February of this year. Published it February too, because that was one of those. I'm just
Wow.
going to write it and publish it.
Yeah. Great.
As a pagan, I have a specific set of virtues and values that are kind of like the core tenets of what I believe. And in Empire Divided, it's broken into 10 chapters. And the first 9 are those 9 noble masculine values from Germanic paganism. And then chapter 10 is the culmination of them all. But what I've tried to do is take something old and bridge the gap to our modern day that we have. Modern men are being crapped on just for being men. The way that we are biologically designed to seek out things that scare us and make us uncomfortable, and to seek out the companionship and fellowship of other men that share our values and build a tribe of brothers and experience brotherhood, is something that for far too long, for as long as I can remember, has been something that it doesn't exist in mainstream society the way it should. We're isolated because we have to be isolated, because we've been shamed, whether it be, it's a bromance or whatever, to want to be intimately attached to our friends on that deep and spiritual level where you love them like a brother or deeper than that. It gets conflated with homosexuality and things like that, which I have a gay son. I don't care if you're gay or not. But
to conflate the two is not
to
right. That to
conflate the two
say
is
things like
dangerous, and it
yeah,
is abusive in the fact that the human condition is eusocial. We need that companionship.
Jeff, I think we need to do an entire episode just on the last 2 minutes of what you said. But so you named your first book. What's the book people should buy after that from you?
The Perimeter. It's a continuation of Empire Divided. I went a little deeper on that, and I'm still unsure whether or not I want to bring out a third installment that I'm currently writing now. It may end up being a standalone, but it could possibly fit into the series. Outside of that, a book that I recommend everyone read if you want to have an idea of why I feel the way I feel. Roman McClay wrote a 1.4 million word magnum opus called Sanction. It is broken into 3 volumes, so you only have to read 800 pages at a time. It's bigger than Lonesome Dove. Sanction by Roman McClay, book 1, 2, and 3. I promise you, if you can read just one of those volumes in a year, you're smarter than I am.
I am partway through book 1
Okay,
of Sanction.
good.
I own book 2. It's been sitting there staring at me. I don't have book 3 yet, so I need to fix that. But that brings us to your company. Besides these books, you also have Rugged Legacy. And as I am Redbeard Consulting, it would be wrong of me to not share with our bearded friends out there these various made in the USA beard care products. And I'm looking at your one that you made with Roman in collaboration with him, which I just love. I love story behind things. Like I wear Origin Maine jeans, which are grown in the USA, made in the USA. I wear a lot of Duckworth clothing, which is the sheep are grown in Montana, made in Montana, very much here. So, real quick before we wrap up, for the website, we have ruggedlegacygrooming.com. And everybody, if you want more of Jeff's approach in your life, rugged_legacy on Twitter. Jeff, thanks for joining the show.
Brian, thanks for having me on, man.